I did try and hand machine the flywheel, but I wasn't happy with how it came out when I put a straight edge across it. So I dropped it into a local clutch specialist and they've machined it. They machined both surfaces. I was surprised when I first saw that, but it actually makes absolute sense because the clutch cover actually bolts down on this part of the flywheel. But of course the pressure plate sits on this part and you need those heights to be the same. So this is your factory 1/2 mil or so, this step in between here. And that's how a freshly machined flywheel looks. The tube where the throwout bearing slides up and down on here from the gearbox, because the bearing seized and destroyed itself, it's also damaged this tube as well. So I got a replacement for that also. So we can see that's the right one, looks perfect. It's got the seal in place as well. So that I'll put a bit of oil on that shaft before I put it back on and put that back together. Also got a new clutch fork. I've never really known, unless you're going to break a clutch fork, why you would want a new one. The reason is there's a little wear pad that sits in the socket joint. That actually just wears out. And for some reason, it looks like you can't buy that little wear pad on its own that sits in that socket. So the solution is you buy a complete new clutch fork. And here is the new Valeo clutch kit. So we've got new pressure plates, new clutch cover, and of course the all-important throwout bearing. And of course, I forgot to mention the clutch alignment tool is included in that kit as well. I am going to do a quick check on the engine just to check on the status of the cam belt and make sure that everything's okay there. I'd hate to go to all the effort to replace the clutch and put the transmission back in, fill it with oil, do all of that good stuff and have a dodgy engine. So I'm just going to go and check the cam belts and make sure the cam timing and everything looks okay. Okay, so I need to turn the engine over. I thought the easiest way to do that is probably with the flywheel. So I've put the flywheel on, torqued the bolts up. I've taken off the plug pack. So there's one single plug pack that covers all 4 spark plugs. And I've taken the plugs out. So now I can turn the engine over easily without worrying about compression. And it gives me a chance to inspect those plugs as well. First 3 look pretty similar. 4th one seems to have just a little bit more build up on it and a slightly different color. So let's see what we find. So I've just loosened off this cover so I can pull this apart and have a look at the cam belt and the cam shafts. So now I'm going to turn it to top dead center number 1 and make sure all of the timing marks line up. Okay, so French engine, flywheel is at this end, so obviously gearbox. Cylinder 1 is closest to the flywheel, 2, 3, 4. So cylinder 4 is actually closest to the camshaft pulleys. What I've done is put a TIG welding wire in here, so just carefully dropped that down through the spark plug hole. That way I can, as I rotate the crankshaft, I can see the piston coming up and down. So I've confirmed this is at top dead center. I've taken a look here and I've noticed the pins are lining up nicely. I've just put some test bolts through down here to make sure that the cam shafts are in the correct location. I believe there's also another pin somewhere for the to lock in the camshaft, but I'm not sure if I need that for doing this particular test. Just want to make sure everything looks like the timing's good. So I'm just trying to, because when I got this transmission, the throwout bearing was totally disintegrated. Let me find it. Here it is here. I never really knew how that attached to the clutch fork. So now that I've got a brand new one, and I'm just looking at how that actually connects. So this obviously slides in here really nicely. These tags here, I mean, they're pretty tiny really, and there's not a clip or anything that holds it on. I'm guessing it just relies on the fact that everything stays in line. It will obviously push down in the down direction. It will push down nicely, and really those little tags just need to allow for that to pull back. So the reason I say that is because there's no way that that can actually go on in that way. There's just not enough room for that to clip down into that area. So it must go like this. But like I said, it surprises me, those tiny little tags to do that. Obviously this is the old clutch fork as well, so the new one's in. Clutch tube's ready to go in. I've got a new seal ready to pop in here because this one was just a bit dry and brittle, and there was a little bit of the outer lip that was damaged there as well. So definitely worthwhile putting that seal in also. We can see this new seal is a totally different design. This is more of a traditional seal. It is double lip, but this one here is quite different. It has a plastic carrier that obviously just pushes, the drive shaft pushes through that. So this is definitely the inside that goes on the inside of the gearbox. But there is a helical pattern on here as well, I guess, to keep the oil, making sure it's being slung inside the gearbox. The numbers do match up with the same diameters, and you can see the height's the same as well. So that one's a bit different, but I think that'll be fine. There's nothing actually printed anywhere on this friction plate to say flywheel side or gearbox side, but it came out of the box like that, and done a little bit of research. I'm pretty sure this is the right way to go. So flywheel side and gearbox side. And of course I've cleaned up those surfaces with some brake cleaner and a clean rag just to make sure there's no oil on it. I've done the same on the pressure plate as well. So we're good to fit this up and move on. Torqued to 20 Newton meters. Pretty stoked. I got that gearbox in without too much trouble. Took a little bit of finagling to work around the actuator, just getting it past the body rails and the brake lines and stuff, but actually went in really well. So now we'll work on getting the drive shafts in and then getting everything connected up. So to get these drive shafts in, you need to pull the hub out so that you can slip the drive shaft into the gearbox, and then you can put the hub over the top of the shaft. So to do that, I actually just pulled out the lower ball joint, and before I put it back in, I've just cleaned that up on the wire wheel. Try and make that go in as easy as possible. And don't forget to put that little shield on there as well. Alright, so I've now got both of the drive shafts on both sides and filling the gearbox up with oil. There is no filler for these, so I'm just going in through the breather. Just popped off the little cap and filling it through the gearbox breather. Just connected the battery up. I've done the earth down onto the gearbox. Got all the cables where I think they should go. The starter motor is bolted on. The hose here, there's a bolt in the back of the block. There's this one down here just to hold that radiator hose. So now I can go ahead and put the airbox back in it, and I'm ready to turn the ignition on and see what happens. Well, it's the moment of truth. It's all back together. The battery's connected. Everything looks okay. Fluids are good. I'm just about to turn the key for the very first time. I don't even know how many kilometers are on this thing, so it's a little bit exciting and very, very scary. Okay, this is the first time I've turned the ignition on in this car. $75,000 kilometers. Okay, it's in neutral. In theory, it should be able to start up. Just gonna try a few things, see if I can put the windows down. Okay, the window's not going down. Let's check over the engine area. Battery terminals aren't hot, so nothing's drawing a lot of current. Alright, I'm gonna just have a little check around and see if we can crank it. Well, today's the day to put this back together and take it for a test drive. Engine's running fine. It was a little bit funny to start. I was expecting the procedure to be a little bit different, but basically there was no start, but there was no errors or anything. I ended up just putting it in gear in reverse, and then the display said place in neutral to start engine. I did that, put it back into neutral, and it cranked over and started instantly. So I'm really happy with that. It looks like the engine's fine. It also means that the procedure for aligning the clutch and the gearbox is okay as well, so that's awesome also. So today I know the brakes are undersized, the front rotors, that's fine. I just need to make sure the rest of the car's okay before I go ahead and fix that as well. So today is tighten up the front axles, put the wheels back on and go for a test drive. There is an initialization process to follow after a battery's been disconnected, especially when wanting to install a new clutch actuator and other devices around the engine as well. So I followed this process, and this is how I got the car into a state where I was able to then crank it and start it without any errors. So just washed the dust off the windows, and now we're going to go for our first drive. Got no errors. I was able to get out of the garage, so let's go for a quick drive and see how it goes. Speedo's working. Second gear, third gear, fourth gear, brakes, back to third gear, back to second gear, third gear. Ah, it's driving beautiful! Okay, we're going to go for full auto this time and see how it drives in full auto mode. It's gone to second. Downhill braking a little bit, so it's holding in second, which is quite nice. Still in second. Gone to third. It's gone back to second. It's gone to third, going uphill. Bit of load on it now. It's driving beautifully. It's got plenty of power and it feels quite good. Back to second. It holds in gear quite well, which is good. I like that. It's gone to third there. Brakes work well, doesn't seem to pull. Probably prefer to drive it in manual mode, but it's good to know that that works perfectly. Oh, we got the paddles as well. Let's give the paddles a go. Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna floor it now. Change to third with the paddle. Change to fourth with the paddle. Ah, she's a beauty. Well, the first test drive this morning went really well. Everything worked a treat. The aircon works, it's not super cold. That's really the only thing I can fault. Everything's working perfectly, so I'm really wrapped. That's great. Next thing I've got to do now is get all the brakes up to scratch. The front rotors are undersized, so they're going to need replacing with new pads. And I'm just about to check the rear pads and rotors as well. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do.